The Ragnar Saga Part 1. The Forging of a Legend. In the vast and monumental tapestry of history, some threads burn brighter than all others. They are not woven with simple facts, but with fire, with blood, and with the very essence of legend. The story of Ragnar Lothbrok is such a thread. Can we truly pierce this veil of mist? Can we separate the man from the monolith of myth that has been built around him? In this series, that is our quest. We will follow the trail left in the sagas and ancient chronicles to reconstruct the life of Ragnar. This is not merely the tale of a Viking. It is the story of how an age of terror was born. Story of ambition, brilliance, and brutality, and how those forces reshaped the known world. Our journey begins where it all started, in the cold, unforgiving lands of the North. Chapter 1.1. A World Forged in Ice. 9th century Scandinavia was a world forged in ice and necessity. There was no single kingdom. The land was a fractured mosaic of petty fiefdoms, ruled by chieftains known as jarls, in a constant struggle for supremacy. Life itself was a battle. The soil was poor, the winters long and merciless. In this brutal landscape, there was only one path to survival and glory: reputation and power. An honor code known as Drengskaper was paramount. It was the measure of a man's courage, his loyalty, his very worth. But honor could not fill an empty stomach. Resources were so scarce that the Norse people were forced to look beyond their shores. And it was this necessity that gave birth to one of history's most formidable weapons: the dragon-headed longship. These vessels were masterpieces of engineering. Powered by both sail and oar, they were shallow enough to navigate rivers, yet strong enough to withstand the fury of the open ocean. The longship was the key that would unlock the world. Ragnar was the man who would turn that key. Chapter 1.2. The Shieldmaiden and the Serpent Slayer. Even Ragnar's origins are shrouded in legend. Some sagas claim he was the son of a Swedish king, others a Danish jarl. What is certain is that his name began to echo through the halls of the North at a young age. And the event that first thrust him onto the stage of history was a saga of vengeance and love. The King of Sweden had invaded Norway, slaying its king. In an act of ultimate humiliation, he forced the women of the royal court into servitude. Among them, a young noblewoman named Lagertha. When word of this outrage reached Ragnar, a kinsman of the fallen king, he set out for retribution. On the field of battle, as Ragnar's forces struggled, a group of women, armored and fighting as men, threw themselves into the fray. Their leader, fighting with a ferocity and skill that stunned all who saw her, was Lagertha. Her warrior spirit turned the tide of the battle, securing a bloody victory. Ragnar was instantly captivated, but Lagertha would not be won isolated. To test his worth, she guarded her home with a massive bear and a ferocious hound. Ragnar alone slew them both, proving not only his strength, but his cunning. He had won her heart, and with it, his own reputation as a warrior of renown. Chapter 1.3. Eyes to the West. Until that time, for the Vikings, the path to wealth lay to the east. They sailed the Baltic, navigated the great rivers of Russia, and traded with the grand civilizations of Constantinople and Baghdad. The Western Sea, the North Sea, was a place of taboo. They called it the Ginnungagap, the yawning void, a place of sea monsters and myth, an abyss at the edge of the world. Ragnar did not believe in these old fears. He had heard whispers of a land to the west, a land called England. It was a place of feuding kingdoms, and more importantly, it held wealthy monasteries. Monasteries fat with treasure and ripe for the taking. While all other eyes looked east, his looked west. He planned to use his technological advantage. The longship in a way no one had ever dared. When he gathered his men, he did not promise them gold alone, offered them something far more valuable. A chance to be the first, a chance to step into an unknown world and have their names become immortal. Chapter 1.4 Lindisfarne, a rehearsal for apocalypse. The year is 793. Ragnar's fleet glided silently towards the holy island of Lindisfarne, off the coast of England. This was no ordinary island. It was the religious heart of the kingdom, a cradle of Christianity. The monks within were armed only with prayer. Their monastery overflowed with priceless treasures, silver crosses, jeweled gospels, and golden relics. And most critically, it was utterly defenseless. Ragnar's attack was an act of calculated shock and terror. The longships erupted from the morning mist like demons. The Vikings swarmed ashore with a speed and savagery that was inhuman. This was not a battle, it was a slaughter. Monks were cut down at the altar, sacred texts were burned, and holy relics were desecrated. When the news spread, it struck Christendom with the force of an earthquake. The scholar Alcuin of York wrote in a letter of pure horror, "Never before has such a terror appeared in Britain. The pagans poured out the blood of saints around the altar and trampled on the bodies of saints in the temple of God like dung in the streets. With this single brutal act, Ragnar had carved his name into history. He had not just sacked a monastery, he had gashed a bloody wound into the side of Europe. And through that wound, he had announced the dawn of a new era. The Viking Age had truly begun. Ragnar had seen the wealth of the West with his own eyes, and this was only the beginning. His ambition was a ravenous fire, and his next target would not be a lonely monastery, but the glittering heart of an empire. Ragnar had tasted the riches of the West, but his greed was insatiable. His eyes were now set on a much bigger prize. His next target would not be just a monastery, but the heart of an empire. Paris. Join us in the second part, where we will tell the story of Ragnar's legendary siege of Paris and the rise of his sons, such as Boneless Ivar.